Hello, everyone. I am Melissa Forziat. I'm a keynote speaker. My topic is Take the Doughnut, which for me is an expression that means carpe diem. It's about going after the things that I want. Well, this year I thought, what I really want to do is have some conversations with people about Halt and Catch Fire, my favorite show, the best show as far as I'm concerned that's been created that I've seen. And so I'm doing a rewatch podcast here. And of course, we've already covered season one, episode one, and now we are moving on to season one, episode two, called FUD, which is actually a term that means fear, uncertainty, doubt. It's an acronym. And this originally aired on June 8th, 2014. Here's the quick description. So Joe, Gordon, and Cameron must deal with legal threats from IBM before starting their work on a better PC. Even after their apparent success, the team faces another crisis that could prematurely end their pursuit. So we're really dealing with the aftermath of the fact that Joe just steamrolled everybody, brought this idea to Cardiff Electric to clone an IBM PC. He was targeting Gordon. He got Gordon to be part of this project. And now they're in a situation where IBM knows that they did this project because Joe told them. And the only way out is through. They actually have to create the machine, they have to create the clone, and they need somebody to write the BIOS for it without looking at their previous code, which is going to have to be Cameron because she was never affiliated with this project before. So that's where we left off. And now we get to head into this second episode where we're continuing to develop the story and to establish these relationships. And we're going to start at the office. We've got some ominous music playing here because it's a legal situation. The IBM legal team, the many people on it have filed into the office, and now they're sitting in a room with each of the employees that are pertinent, and they're getting some answers. They're really, in some cases, trying to trick them into saying the answers that they want. But we're going to start with the IBM folks interviewing Gordon, and they ask a very pointed question. When did Joe come to you with the idea to reverse engineer the IBM PC? Which is, in fact, an accurate question. But Gordon, they all know that they need to lie here. So Gordon says, no, that's not how it happened, you see. Boz and Nathan Cardiff, they approached me to do this project all the way back on April 4th, far before Joe ever came to the picture. So they've clearly got a story that they've mapped out for each other, and we're hearing it little by little. Gordon is telling us a whole bunch of it. Now we're going to see IBM interviewing Cameron. We're going to go back and forth between these interviews. IBM's interviewing Cameron, and they're saying, okay, well, you know how it works. You're going to have to write a replica of our BIOS code, but you can't look at it. And Cameron, she honestly didn't even need to be coached for this because she knows exactly how insulted to be. She's like, look, I don't want to copy your garbage. It's garbage. Why would I want to copy it? I could do so much better. Okay, that's a dead end. The IBM team's like, new tactic. Now we're going to go back to Gordon. Gordon saying, look, why me? You're asking why me of all the people here? I'll tell you why, because I've got more microcomputing experience than anybody here. And the lady who's in charge of their legal team, the first counsel on this, she's like, oh, I know what to do with this guy. Just poke him wherever it hurts, which in this case is going to be his ego. She's like, look, are you trying to tell us that your past failures on previous projects qualify you to run this new project? Oof. Obviously, Gordon's not going to like that very much. The lawyers are also trying to find an angle in with Cameron, and they're saying, look, they're probably going to let you go the second you've written that BIOS code for yourself. So, just know that. And hey, by the way, no pressure or anything. If you open that binder of our code, you go to jail. That's how this works. You open the binder, you go to jail. So what we're seeing here is, it's all intimidation. They walked into this office, they came out in force. they're unfriendly, not interested in small talk. They're coming in right with the key questions they need to ask, and they're going to do whatever they need to do to get the answers that they need. But this group, they've talked, right? So they know what they're supposed to be saying. They also know what they're not supposed to be saying. And they kind of just need to get through this first step, right? So that they can get on to doing the work. We're going to go into the bathroom. We're going to see Boz sort of psyching himself up, splashing water on his face. He's a little nervous, and Joe's going to come in. He's like, "You're up. It's your turn." And once again, like he did in the previous episode with Nathan Cardiff, he tries in his way to just be like, "No, see, all this is a good thing, because, if you do this and you do right." Boz is not on good terms with Joe right now. He does not want to hear it. Joe, it's like, I might kick your ass, but we're definitely leaving this bathroom. That's his feeling on all of this. And Boz knows what he needs to do, but does he want to do it? Does he feel good that Joe put him in this position? No, definitely not. Something that is really hitting home for me in these first couple of episodes is just, what a terrible position Joe has put Boz in. And, it will continue to worsen as this episode goes along. And Boz feels that deeply. I think he's a guy who probably operates with a certain loyalty, but he also knows when to cut a person loose and not to involve himself with a person. And he probably would prefer not to be involved with Joe at all, but this is the mess he finds himself in, and he resents it. He is not, he made mistakes not doing a background check on Joe, but Joe is, capitalizing on this for everything that he possibly can. And, Boz is taking him to task for that, and may do so for quite some time with the position he's in right now. So Joe is going to sit down with Dale from IBM. Now, my sense of Dale, I don't necessarily know the org chart, but Dale seems to me to be sort of the representative on behalf of Joe's father. He obviously is in such a position that he should be on this trip in this office at Cardiff. And he should be the person who's, bringing all this information to Joe and sitting down and trying to negotiate. But I feel like he's the representative of Joe's father in this situation. And there's clearly some baggage between Joe and his dad. Joe, what is the point that Joe's trying to prove with all of this? As much as he was moving towards things, he was moving towards Gordon, he was moving towards, putting this team together, he was moving towards this project. But why this project? What is really behind this? And I keep feeling like Dale being this representative is giving us a clue. So Joe and Dale sit down, and it's this very, very gamesmanship related conversation where Joe is making it abundantly clear to Dale, like, he knows all of the things that his team needs to say. He's well versed in how to handle this very situation. And why is he well versed in it? Well, because he learned from what IBM did to Columbia Data and to Compaq. He knows the legal loopholes because he learned them from the IBM team. He was on the other side. He watched IBM do this to others, and he now knows exactly what the playbook is. And he makes that clear to Dale without saying anything overly incriminating. So Dale knows this is sort of a gotcha moment. He's like, all right, well, have you told any of your friends about when you left our, IBM? Have you told them about all that situation? So we continue to get these hints that Joe went out in some sort of a blaze of glory, but we don't really, or a blaze of something else, but we don't necessarily know what it was. So, Dale is like, what if we just buried you in legal costs? How about that? What if we just threw all of our lawyers at this, buried you in paperwork, buried you in legal costs? Joe smiles and he turns back, looking through the window to Barry, Cardiff's in-house legal counsel. And he says, meet Barry, this guy looking at us through the window, smiling and waving. he's the one who's going to field all of it. No matter how many lawyers you put on this, no matter how much paperwork you give us, it's all going to Barry. Barry makes like 50,000 a year. And we're going to kill him. We're going to kill him with paperwork. It's going to be great. And, we'll ruin his life and you're still going to lose. And Joe just has every angle of this covered for Dale. He has all of the answers. He's unflappable in this situation. And from here, we're going to watch as the whole IBM team has left the office and they're filing into their black cars. They've just got one fancy looking car after another in the parking lot, and they're getting into it. They're leaving. We get the sense they didn't get what they wanted while they were there. And, Cardiff has won this battle for sure. So, okay, we can't take too long to celebrate this because we have a job to do now. Like this, we won. And what did we win? We win work. We win getting to do a whole bunch of work. So Joe wants to get his team together and establish what their goals are. He's got a blank whiteboard in front of him. And the question is, what are we doing here? And Joe writes 2 times fast, 1/2 price. Gordon says, that's not a thing. That's not possible. That's not how the industry works. Cameron says, that's it. So we're already straight away, and hardly any complete complex sentences are being achieved here. And yet we still have a very clear sense of where everybody stands and what their mission, their personal mission is in this project. Joe's mission has kind of been accomplished. He's created the situation where they now need to execute. And he's put the people together. Gordon, he's a hardware guy. He's thinking about the engineering piece of this, and he's thinking about how do I make a machine that will be 2 times as fast and 1/2 the price. Cameron, as Gordon points out, oh, so you're one of those idea people. You want a computer with a soul. I get it, a computer with a soul. Have you ever touched the hardware? Have you ever actually built a machine? Probably not. So, it feels like there's departmental wars that are happening here. Maybe those are wars that happen in the real world as well. But, Gordon initially says, no, we can't do this. Look, the industry, you make changes in increments. You can either decrease the price or you can increase the speed. You can't do both at the same time. But then he sits with it and he just talks himself into starting to brainstorm. Cameron still needs some convincing here. She wants way more from a machine than just being a machine. Joe's going to take a step back. He's going to let them duke this one out. And, Cameron and Gordon are really going to establish their positions here. Cameron is looking for things like photorealistic screens. She wants machines to be self-learning. She wants it to have a soul. And that is not Gordon's job. Boz interrupts all of this and he says, you two split up. You can't be in the same room. We're trying to, we just won a battle. We're trying not to lose the next one. So just get into separate spaces, go to your corners and do your work. Debbie, the office secretary, is going to escort Cameron to Cameron's new office / white bald small box. Debbie says, okay, so what are you doing for us again? Just remind me, refresh my memory on what you're doing. Cameron, bless Debbie, bless her heart. Cameron's like, okay, well, I'm writing the BIOS code. So it's basic input output software. It's what runs when your computer turns on. Debbie's like, oh, like WordStar. Cameron gives the biggest eye roll. I mean, go back, check the size of the eye roll. It's substantial. Sure, Debbie, it's sort of like that, except, she gives her a small correction and is just like, if this isn't worth it. Debbie is going to take her into this office, which is known as the clean room, the room where Cameron can not be, no information that Cameron isn't supposed to have is in this room. There's not the binder with all the BIOS code for the IBM PC. There's nothing in it. There's no Gordon. There's nothing in it and no people in it that can interfere with Cameron having a clean process. The only person in it is Barry. Barry needs to babysit her and make sure that there's no information or people who are coming in and dirtying up the clean room. So Barry's going to be her very best buddy. Debbie passes a small subtle hint to Cameron, who's still wearing basically the same sweater, same outfit. Cameron does not have a lot of clothing here. So Debbie's going to say, hey, you know what? There's a store. They're having a half off sale. Maybe just know that. Just think about maybe considering to possibly go to the store. Very subtle, Debbie. Nice job. So, okay, we figured all this piece out. Now, Boz is going to introduce Joe to the rest of the office. It's about time we establish what's happening, especially now that IBM just scared everybody in the office with this intimidation tactic of filing in. And so Boz is going to do a whole introduction here. He's going to introduce Joe as the senior product manager. He comes to us from IBM, sort of. And he's going to hand it over to Joe, and Joe's going to sort of smooth things over with all the folks in the office. But he's going to start by just kissing up to John publicly. He's going to say, you know what, John, this is all thanks to you. Your faith, your foresight, and if I may say so, your brass balls are what got us here. And everybody's laughing. He's saying, you know, look, Cardiff's going to be a trailblazer. We're doing something great. We're doing something amazing. And it's because of you, John. Everybody clap for John. So he's, I don't know, he's trying to give him all this show. He's trying to give John this show. John isn't buying a bit of it. He's like, oh, okay, thank you, everybody. And then he turns and you see the scowl, just the glare on Boz's face. He's just, okay, I get what you're doing and I'm not buying it. So Joe's now going to turn to, okay, how do you switch people into sort of allaying their fears? He said, look, I know you probably saw IBM here. That was super scary, right? But hey, it's signaling change. Change is coming, but you're going to be part of it. Every single one of you is going to be part of this process for like 5 minutes. Okay. I mean, obviously, if you're an employee working here and you see all this happening, you're fearing for the company, you're fearing for the job. Nobody's telling you what's going on. Nobody at the top really even knows exactly how they're getting through it. They're flying by the seat of their pants. And that's not what you want when you're working for a company. But nonetheless, that's the situation they're in. So Joe's trying to address it head on. He's saying, you know, yep, change is coming. That is correct, but you're all going to be in on it. He establishes a couple of rules. Number 1, let's have a lot of fun. Number 2, let's make a lot of money. Joe has some different sales approaches that we're going to see over the years. And this is a sexy sales mode, Joe, which comes out a few times. And I always enjoy it when he goes here because it's a mode he shifts into. He always shifts into these modes and he does it with intention. And this is sexy Joe, be on my team. Let's make a lot of money. And Lee Pace cracks me up. It's so perfect. It's so, as we are seeing all these different shades of Joe and the fact that he can just turn this stuff on and off, it doesn't feel genuine. It doesn't feel genuine at all, but it's sure exciting for a room. And this, you know, this is fun salesman Joe. This is the Joe you want to be around. This is the Joe that you want to help work on this machine. He closes this with, you know, all the, you know, here's all the ways we're going to make a change. We might do this, we might do that, and we might just put a ding in the universe. At the point when he says this, the camera is squarely on Gordon's face. Gordon and his one of his neighbors and good friends, and they're all kind of like, Gordon just his brow kind of furrows. It all just comes in like that. Something's amiss. Put a ding in the universe. Where have we heard this before recently? We'll find out in just a minute. So Debbie is now going to show Gordon to his new office. So although Gordon is very suspect of Joe, and he sees through many of the things Joe is doing, Gordon also just got a new office, an office of his own with a window in it, with a desk, with a light that he can turn on and off. He's just playing with the stuff in the office. This is his office now. Oh my goodness. Okay, so all right. So Joe isn't the most straightforward guy. And so Joe put us all in a terrible position. And so he maybe is quoting other people as if it's his own speeches. But I do have an office. It's not so bad. So he's getting used to the idea. And, Gordon, Joe's going to come in. He's going to greet Gordon in his brand new office. And Gordon's like, okay, got a new office. Just want to let you know, hey, ding in the universe, Steve Jobs much? Gordon makes it clear he knows what Joe just did. He passed off somebody else's quote as his own to inspire his team. Joe's like, so it is. And then he encourages Gordon to get some sleep because they're going to get started tomorrow. We're going to start building tomorrow. That's the good news. So Gordon is going to drive home in his car. He's blasting the Lido Shuffle song, which is just this moment of, the song's blasting, he's blasting. It's a very exciting moment for Gordon. The song, if you look at the lyrics of this song, it's really about a con man who's looking for his next and what he thinks will be his last job. If it's a good job, it's his last job. And he's singing it with abandon. And that feels about right for where we are in the story right now. Meanwhile, we are going to go to a quick cut to some loud, very loud punk music. We are back in the office, back in the clean room, and through a closed door with Barry on the outside of the closed door because he cannot handle the loud punk music. We're going to open the door. Joe's actually going to open the door, and Cameron is in the middle of dismantling a computer. What process is she doing here? She's doing her own process, okay? Joe doesn't know what this process is. He's not impressed with this process. This process does not look like coding, but okay. So he walks in trying to sort of move Cameron along, and she is going to basically pounce on him every time he does that. So Cameron's dismantling this computer. She's just ordered pizza delivery. The pizza is delivered. She says to put it on Joe's card. I mean, she's just fully using this space for to get the absolute most of it. And Joe's like, yeah, what are you doing right now? Cameron saying, well, I'm currently working on a machine nobody's going to care about. And Joe's like, wait. People are going to care about this. It'll be more accessible to more people. It's going to be cheaper and faster. And that's going to make a difference for people all over the world. Yay. And she's like, yeah, you'll put a ding in the universe. Whatever, Joe. Don't sell to me. I know what's happening here. Just don't sell to me. I'm working on the job. She, at the end of all of this, that probably might have been enough. But they're currently in this exchange of disdain mode that's happening right now. They're kind of challenging each other. And Cameron's like, yeah, you know what? I heard your speech, have fun, make money, and then a bunch of other stuff you made up or stole from somebody else. You are just a salesman, Joe. That's all you are. See your way out. She closes the door behind Joe, and Joe's I have this feeling, Joe's standing behind the door thinking, and I feel like he's been assessed. He's been discovered. This episode, I just want to say at this point that this episode feels like daddy issues from top to bottom, right? Dale's bringing them up. Gordon's onto him. Cameron's onto him. Joe has created this sort of there's a Joe salesman, and then there's maybe something underneath it, which is probably a little boy who was not treated very well by his dad. And today he zipped up his Joe robotic suit. the Joe that doesn't care, the Joe that gets it done, the Joe that's the sexy salesman. That's the suit he put on. But any of these people that can see underneath that, it's really affecting him in a deep way, and probably more so because Dale did it at the beginning of the episode. I think it really tapped into something in Joe that Joe does not like, that Joe has been trying to run away from, that Joe has been trying to destroy, you might even say. And nope, it's still there. And everybody's seeing it. Everybody who matters is seeing it. Joe has been assessed. Now we're going to go to the Clark house, where we're hearing some classical music in the background. And that's relevant for Donna's character. She's into classical. So Donna's currently cooking. Gordon comes in and he's like, guess what? Turns out we're going to be okay. Hurrah. Donna is relieved. So the IBM left. They won this battle. They don't need to worry about IBM. And Gordon's got a new office, got a new job. He starts tomorrow in his new office with a light that he can flip on and off. And this is just such a relief of a moment. He's going to get to build a PC. He's going to get to build a machine. And they're out of trouble right now, which was a concern that they had. So we find out that the kids are playing next door. They are alone in the house and they're going to go make love. And then after they make love, they're going to have some pillow talk. Sort of. They're talking, it's talking shop really. So Donna's saying, okay, well, I have to take Joni to the dentist tomorrow. He has to pull a tooth. We know how much she hates that. Gordon, who's so proud of himself right now, he's like, well, why don't you bring her to the office after? She can see my new office, and that'll be special for her, right? He's feeling good about himself, as well he should. And so, Donna asks the question, hey, who did they get to write the bios, by the way? Tell me about them. And Gordon says, Cameron Howe. Gordon does not mention that Cameron is a woman. And in fact, Donna assumes that Cameron is a man, which is this very awkward moment in bed where you can just see all over Gordon's face. He's like, why did I not say something immediately? I'm keeping this secret now. And don't worry, folks, it won't be long before this is found out. I can't hide this secret very long. We're going to go to the office, and it's after hours. Cameron's still working. She is obviously having a hard time figuring out what she needs to figure out. She's frustrated. She's crossing things out furiously. She takes a break. She walks around the office. It's empty. It's dark. She almost feels at home in this office. It feels like after hours. And she's going to put her sweater back on, go into her little white room box, and she's going to sleep on the floor. Cameron doesn't have a place to stay. So I was thinking about this. When Joe found Cameron was taking college classes. Now, was Cameron living on campus? Could she afford to live on campus? Does she have parents who are supporting her? Or did she not have a place to stay then either? And, maybe she was crashing on other people's common areas. Who knows? She probably had more options on how to make it work at that time. If you look at just common areas on campus. But anyway, she does not have a place to stay now. So she's sleeping at the office. She's working at the office, and nobody's really noticing that because nobody else is there except for her at night. So one thing that I thought was really interesting about this scene that I'd never really picked up on before was as she leans back to sleep on the floor, and she has a long look at the exit sign over the door. Why the exit sign? She just got here. It's obviously not an ideal situation on the one hand, with all the threat of the legal ramifications, with the fact that she doesn't really know what her job security situation is. She's struggling with the task itself. So there's a lot of things that aren't ideal, but on the other hand, she's got a decently paying job, very well paying for somebody of her age who's not even a college graduate. And, she has security right now, which might be more than what she's had. So I think it's really interesting that she's looking at the exit sign. Is that because she feels safe or because she feels unsafe? Something to think about. And I could make a case either way at this moment, but it's this really interesting thought that like, where's the exit? Where's the door? We are now going to go to a scene. It's Boz in a locker room. I think it's at a racquetball facility from the sound design that we hear in this building. But I don't know that Boz is a guy who plays a lot of racquetball. But what I do know is he's there because he wants to talk to Carl, a client. This is a targeted sales mission that is masquerading as, hey, Boz is just casually in the locker room doing locker room banner. So Boz is talking about, oh yeah, we sent IBM out of town. That's no problem. That's all good. We find out that the guy he's talking to, Carl, was a football player, it sounds like. And, he is in bragging and relationship building mode. He's in sales mode. He's talking about, hey, you think you're going to kick into the player recruitment fund? We'll probably do that because we're doing great over at Cardiff Electric. And so he's really trying to schmooze. He continues to track this guy after this guy leaves the locker room. Boz is still following him out. He hasn't changed out of his clothes. So being in the locker room was really solely for the purpose of seeing Carl. And as they're walking and talking, Boz is saying, hey, you know what? How about we just send a couple of guys over to do some upgrades for you guys? No charge. It's just because you're so awesome and we love you so much. And this guy looks like he kind of wants to be having any other conversation other than the one that he's currently having. Okay, so now we're going to head over to the office, and Joe is going to go back into Cameron's office. He is re-entering the lion's den. Cameron's not there. Cameron has flown the coop, you might say. She left a little note on her computer, just on the monitor, possibly a note specifically for Joe to read. If you can read this bee fell off. And meanwhile, Barry, who's supposed to be monitoring her, fell asleep, and she took the opportunity to drop penis all over his face. And this guy does not have it together. He is not a good person to monitor Cameron. That we know. So she flew the coop, and Joe wakes Barry up, sends him away. Barry, you've got balls on your face. Barry's like, what? So I enjoyed this very much. Where is this Cameron? Cameron needs to get it together. Joe is on a mission here. Joe needs this job done, particularly because they only have so much time to get this task done. Like they need to prove that they're moving forward and that they've been moving forward on it. He finds Cameron in, I'm assuming this is the basement. There's like a storage area, and she's set up some whiteboards. She's working on something that isn't code. And Joe comes in and he says, aha, you cannot just do whatever you want around here. You don't have the run of the place. You have a job to do. In fact, that job is writing code. And I know, okay, I may not know a lot of things, but I know that that's not code on that whiteboard. Cameron, again, they're in a disdain for disdain match. They're challenging each other. They're sort of both asserting their dominance here. They're butting heads. They're trying to figure out what this process is going to look like of working together. I mean, Cameron, does she respect Joe? Just barely, if at all. Joe wants to be respected. He doesn't want to be seen through. She basically insulted him earlier. And so, she's like, good point. Very true. It's not code. As you can tell, I'm trying to decide if we need to do this multiplication in order to align on octal boundaries. She starts hitting him with lingo, I'm sure you were already able to see this, but insert fancy lingo here that he definitely doesn't understand. And she's trying to say, this process is above your pay grade. It's too complicated for you. Don't you worry your pretty little head. Sit back over here. I'm actually doing work. This is how I'm doing it. She closes it with, love to hear your thoughts. and she stares him down, and they stare at each other. There's just this lingering stare, this I see you stare. She's basically telling him, back off, do not mess with me. And he's like, oh, but I have to mess with her. How am I going to get this done? Um, and he does not like being pushed in this way. While all of this is happening, Gordon has had his own suspicions of Cameron, right? So he's going to be back in her clean room looking through her stuff. She's got a duffel bag of stuff, and he has dumped it out, and he's looking at it. And there's a bunch of odds and ends in there, you know, spray on deodorant, all these different things. But there's two things that particularly strike him. One is some sort of a stuffed animal doll puppet sort of thing. And the other one is a switchblade. And that's an unusual pairing, but he's really thinking about the weapon, and he's not loving it. So he is fixated on that piece of it, and it's just whatever suspicions he's had about Cameron, he's looking for things to reinforce it. He has to trust her with his safety and his family's safety in terms of his career, his job, and frankly not going to jail. So can he trust her in this way? Who knows what this girl is all about? We're going to go back to Joe and Cameron still in the basement. Joe's like, you're stuck. I can see that you're stuck. Do you even know what you're trying to do here? Is there any way that I can help? Cameron says, okay. So she goes to unbuckle his belt because, you know what, frankly, having sex would clear her mind in this situation. He's like, hold on a minute. Why don't you just take a break? Why don't you go upstairs, go back to your terminal, and just maybe do your work? How about that? Okay, so if she needed having sex with him to clear her mind, that's not happening. Okay, so they've kind of established where they are right now. And we're going to go back upstairs. Joe's going to go back upstairs. Gordon's going to approach him, and he's like, you know what? We just don't really know Cameron, do we? Can we trust this girl? Can we trust her? Joe's like, no, here, the plan is she writes the BIOS code. We send her packing. That's the plan. This is not a permanent thing. Gordon, just sit tight on this. And Gordon's like, oh, okay, great. Because he thought he was going to have to make this whole pitch. He thought he was going to have to dump out Cameron's bag in front of Joe and be like, there's a switchblade in here. So that doesn't have to happen. Joe's already on the same page as him. Gordon's like, maybe get her to the clean room. Maybe get her to do her job. Joe's like, I really don't need you to tell me that. I just tried that. How about you try? You're it. Your turn. Gordon's like, I can't do that. That's not a thing I'm allowed to do. Okay. Joe really has had it about up to here. He's got currently zero energy. His energy has been fully depleted on the whole talking to Cameron thing. We are now going to see Donna and Hale and Joni show up at the office. And Joni just had her tooth pulled. It is post-dentist visit. And they're going to go into the bathroom. Cameron is in the bathroom getting changed, getting ready for work. Getting ready to be presentable back in the office. She comes out of the stall. She's putting on deodorant. She's brushing her teeth. Donna's a little bit like, well, okay, like, have you, like, why are you fully getting ready for work as if you just got to the office, but you've been here? So she's looking at Cameron pretty skeptically. As Cameron starts to brush her teeth, Joni is advising her, oh, make sure to get those hard to reach ones. Cameron kind of shakes it off. And Donna's like, sorry, we were at the dentist. She introduces herself. And then Cameron introduces herself by name as Cameron. Donna's like, this is the Cameron Howe, the Cameron that Gordon was telling me about, the Cameron that I assumed was a man, and he didn't correct me. Oh, this has been clocked. We're going to go back to Gordon's office where Donna has fully clocked that Gordon didn't lie, but he didn't tell her everything, now did he? And he didn't correct Donna when Donna assumed Cameron was a man. So Donna looks a little miffed. Gordon is also being visited by Brian, one of the people that works with him, and also their neighbor. Brian knows Joni really well, is like, oh, you're so brave. He calls her a nickname. They're obviously good buddies, or at least comfortable with each other. He says to Donna, see you ladies at the soccer game. I'm bringing donuts. At this point, I thought, yay, donuts, because take the donut, right? Brian's going to leave, and Donna doesn't really want to hang around any longer than that. So, Gordon's like, hey, cool office, right? Aren't you loving everything? I've got a window. I've got a light that I can switch on and off. I've got a door. Like, I've got all the things an office should have. There's a desk here. Donna looks at him kind of funny. And she's like, you know what? Dentist went long. We really need to go. I have to go back to the office. So now we head over to the basement. Cameron is continuing to work on a whiteboard. Well, she's looking at the whiteboard she's been working on. She's trying to process it. She's trying to come up with some answers for herself. She's drinking a whole lot of orange soda. And Joe interrupts her and does so in the most disruptive way possible. He just slams her and spills her drink all over the place, all over herself. And he throws the IBM binder at her and says, use this, use the code. She's like, no, I use that. I go to jail. The legal team from IBM made that very clear to me. Use binder, look at code, go to jail. So he's like, no, this is how this works. You use the binder, you change it like by just enough that it's not considered copying. And you just, that's how you do it. IBM knows you're going to do it that way. Just do it. We need to get this thing done. He throws the book back at her. She throws the book at, they're throwing the book at each other. And this is just fully like full impasse, we have not figured out how to work together. We are not sure if we like each other. We're not sure if we feel good about each other. We are seeing right through each other. These two, we don't know much about Cameron's upbringing or her family life. We don't know a ton about Joe's, but I think we get some feelings about that even in this episode. And I just feel like these two are just, in some ways, they're mirrors of each other. They've just handled it differently. And they haven't figured out how to make this work. They're attracted to each other, but it's not good when they're together. So is this a recipe for a good situation, good dynamic, good relationship, or what are we heading towards here? Guess we'll have to find out. So we're going to go to the Clark house. It's after dinner, and Donna's still thinking about, oh, Cameron's a woman, and Gordon did not tell me that. She points out, yeah, she got back to work late, but fortunately Hunt didn't notice. Hunt is her boss. We will meet him later. Gordon, I don't know if he knows he's busted or he's just done with the guilt, but he just comes out and says, Cameron's a girl. Cameron is a girl. She's a girl, but she's weird. She's a girl and she's weird, and it's fine. Don't worry about it. She did go to Austin Tech. Donna's like, I met her. Oh, she was busted. He was busted before he even knew he was busted. So Gordon says, don't worry. We are going to can her right after she finishes writing the bios. And Donna's like, yeah, but let's just hope Joe was right. It's kind of an interesting reaction, right? Because when she meets Cameron, my first impression of her seeing Cameron in the bathroom and identifying Cameron as the Cameron who's working on the BIOS code is that Donna felt maybe not jealous, but worried about Gordon not telling her that Cameron was a woman. I was wondering does she think that there's something to that with Gordon? But from this line, let's hope Joe was right. It's almost like the relief that she felt when Gordon said everything was okay. When she met Cameron, she didn't feel that relief anymore. There was a little bit of worry that crept back in because they're relying on Cameron. They're all relying on Cameron for this project. Does Cameron have it together? So it put a new light for me on Cameron and Donna's first meeting and how Donna feels about it now. we're going to go to a department store, probably the one that Debbie recommended to Cameron, or at least it's a shop. Cameron is picking out a bunch of clothes. Once again, there's a punk song. There's Blank Generation playing. This shot is kind of interesting. Cameron is sort of looking at different clothes on a rack, but the set here, so she's in front of a ton of red shirts. There's a ton of red. They picked all the red clothing in the store and they've put it on the racks behind her. So they're giving us sort of a red vibe with Cameron. Then they take us into the dressing room with her, another small blank room. She's trying on a bunch of shirts. They really don't look or feel like Cameron. We're used to seeing Cameron in tank tops and that one red sweater. A lot of red with Cameron so far. And so she's trying on shirts. They don't really seem like Cameron. I particularly enjoyed, she's actually confused by a couple shirts. I've had, who else has had this experience where you try to put on a shirt, you know, women's shirts, sometimes they like get strappy and weird and angled, and you try to put your arm into something and it's not an armhole and you don't know how to take it off now that you've put it on. And she's having this experience, and I enjoyed seeing that reflected in somebody else. Like, do I need a degree to put this shirt on or take it off? So she's tried some things on, and then she's in the store and she gets to a wall of some plain shirts. She puts a bunch in her bag and she steals them. She walks away. She leaves the store, and then she's followed in the mall. She's followed by a bunch of guys in suits, and they walk behind her, and she walks a little faster and they walk a little faster, and she's like, ah. So she turns around. They're like, hey, miss. And she says, okay, I'll pay for it. Okay, that's off-putting because they're not actually mall security or store security. They are from IBM. Not really the best way to start that conversation. I'll pay for it. So they're like, we're going to ignore that that's how you just greeted us. We have an opportunity. We don't hear what the opportunity is yet. We're just continuing to move forward. We're back to the office now. Boz is trying to get Carl on the phone. Remember Carl from the locker room, Carl from the walk and talk after the locker room, Carl who didn't even want to talk with Boz there. Can't get him on the phone. You also can't get Jeff at EDS on the phone. Boz comes out of his office, and there's much ado. There's much clamor. There's an office frenzy happening right now. People are fielding calls. Clients are pulling out. Clients are switching to IBM. They are losing client after client to IBM. Joe comes out of his office. We're being raided by IBM. IBM is undercutting us. Boz is on the phone trying to talk to contacts. He's trying to work his relationships. Joe is like, I'll fix this. I know the business. Boz, who's just had enough with Joe. Like, you created this problem. It's an even bigger problem at this moment. You don't know how to fix it. Boz is like, this is not about knowing the business. This is about relationships. I know the relationships. You don't. It certainly feels like Joe didn't calculate this far. For as far as ahead as Joe thought, for whatever his big designs were for his plan, you know, he thought about how to get the job at Cardiff. He thought about how to get Gordon involved. He found Cameron. He figured out how to make it so that Cardiff would have to do this project. He got all of this to happen. But then I guess the foresight kind of stopped because he didn't think about what would happen after they convinced IBM that they were always working on this project. And this was a possible outcome. Now we're heading into a smaller office, a private office, and not the cubicles area. And Boz is on the phone with Carl. We've got Joe in the room. We've got Gordon in the room. We've got a few others in the room. Clearly, these are the people who are like the people who are the fixers in this situation. Boz is doing this whole Carl, he finally got Carl on the phone. Carl, don't make me beg for this. Oh, you want to, he's trying to convince him, but he finds out Carl is standing firm. He's like, oh, you want to jump ship, Carl? You be my guest. Yeah, I'll just remember when you did this and that. And by the way, you were a lousy receiver in football. And so he ends this conversation. Everybody in the room could hear the conversation. Boz is yelling into the phone. He's very frustrated, angry, desperate. And he hangs up the phone and he just looks around the room and he goes, "Carl's a no." I just I just love that line so much. It's the simplest line and so unnecessary, but it's just so Boz. And in this moment where it's just a disaster for all of them, it's how can Boz not make you laugh? So there's a guy in the room who's probably their finance guy. He's looking at the numbers. Okay, so we've lost 15 accounts today. 3 of those made up 68% of our core billings. This is bad news. We established that with what happened today, Cardiff can maintain their operations for just under 2 months. And that's, if they reduce, if they cut back, if they make a lean team, it's going to be tight here at Cardiff. Boz is looking at Joe and he's like, you see what you did? We're going to have to fire half of our team because of your PC idea. Joe doesn't have a plan here. Joe is looking sheepish. He's looking pained. He didn't really consider this ramification. And I don't even know if this ramification would bother him that much if he weren't in the office to look at these people and to see what was happening. But this is his fault. he designed this, and this is the result. Gordon is like, "Oh, so you don't have a plan for this part. So you were pretending for all of this. All of this because you read my article? This is what happens when you read somebody's article?" Gordon's super stressed. He can't believe it. And once again, Gordon he sees Joe. He is unimpressed by Joe in this moment. He's been impressed in moments, but not in this moment. And look, Joe doesn't have it all figured out. Joe hasn't got it all sorted. We can't always count on Joe. Joe screwed it all up today. Joe's going to go to the basement. Joe is fired up. He is deeply wounded on, I think, a core level here, because when people are yelling at him the way they're yelling at him, I think it feels like his dad is yelling at him. He's tearing up the basement. He's looking for this binder that he gave to Cameron. Gordon comes to meet him. He stops Joe from tearing up the basement, and Gordon finds out, "You gave her the binder? That's like the one thing you can't give her. We're going to jail. We're going to jail." Joe's like, "We're not going to jail," but their levels are rising here. They're angry about this. They're frustrated with each other. Gordon's like, "We know nothing about this girl. We don't know if we can trust her. This is not a safe situation." And then you go and give her the thing that could send all of us to jail. He's in the middle of saying all this. He turns, looks at the multiple whiteboards that are now full with Cameron's work. She's been showing her work, working through it, trying to get ideas. She's, not in the room, but Gordon sees all this and he stops mid-sentence. What he sees on this board floors him. It's the first moment in the show where Gordon realizes, like, hang on, maybe some respect is due. Gordon thinks he's tough stuff. Gordon thinks he's, the best in the class, best in the office. He's this talented guy with with the hardware, with the engineering, with putting the machine together, with working with the metal. And, he sort of, he's called Cameron an idea person, and it was derogatory. He doesn't value that. He doesn't value maybe any of those people in his office. He doesn't think that they were working in the real world. But Gordon understands what Cameron has been working on just by looking at it. He couldn't have done it himself, but he realizes, wow, this is brilliant. This is actually brilliant. He is blown away by her work. So Sometime later, Joe had been in his office. It feels like he was hiding in his office. Joe comes out into the main office area, the open area with all the cubicles, and the whole office stops. Everybody's staring at him because, frankly, earlier in this episode, he gave them all this fancy speech. He turned on sexy salesman Joe. He says, you guys, change is coming and you're all going to be part of it. And within hardly any time at all, we find most of them are not going to be part of it. I think that's pretty obvious in the office right now. There are some problems. And now it's not just Boz and Nathan Cardiff and Gordon and Cameron that know what Joe's all about, but nobody in this office trusts him either. He lost a lot of people in a day. So Joe is going to go for a drive and he is going to see an audio store that has a going out of business sale. Everything must go. Everything's on deep discount. They're not going to be in business anymore. Joe walks in, not because he's excited about the deal, but because they're going out of business and darn it, he's going out of business. And so he walks in and he starts talking to the salesperson and he's looking at a cassette player and the guy's like, yeah, let me make a pitch to you. He's like, well, let me hear your pitch. I'm here. I'm a customer of yours. And this guy starts to pitch this cassette player to him. And Joe just turns and says, so you're going out of business? What's your problem? Where'd you go wrong? Why did this happen? You didn't see this coming? And he's getting really frustrated because in between all of this guy's trying to sell him a stereo because he just told him to sell him a stereo. But Joe's not really there for the audio. Joe's there because he's punishing himself that he's now driving Cardiff out of business. And the best way to punish himself is to destroy something and to have that release. And the best thing he can do is destroy this guy and this shop. And he's not going to start throwing audio equipment all over the place. What he's going to do is he's going to turn up the music real loud on every single device. And this guy is like, what is happening with my customer? He's not feeling at all comfortable with it. He says, I'm going to call the cops. Joe, who's worked himself up into a rage, the music is blasting, similar to how the music has been blasting with Cameron. For her, it was about trying to be productive. For him, it's about trying to destroy, trying to feel pain, trying to punish himself. And he just stands there with the music blaring and he hangs his head real low. Once again, how was discipline handled in his household? What kind of expectations were there for him? And what happened when he didn't meet them? All of this is coming to my mind, and it may sound like a big jump to make, but Dale planted those thoughts with us earlier. Dale is representing IBM, and it's like, okay, what is he representing? He's representing his dad. So, and this is the man who had a baseball bat from his dad, and he swings it and he tries to fire himself up. And, it was all about being excellent at what you do. There's the little line written by his dad on the bat. So like, I watch Joe trying to, in whatever way he can, sort of destroy this audio store, and he's destroying himself in the process. So we're going to go to Joe's apartment. And Dale stops by because Joe needs to see Dale again. Oh my goodness. Dale walks in, he takes a look at the place, he says, cozy. It's really not cozy. There's almost nothing in it. He has a very sparse decorating style. And Dale came in pretty much just to rub it, salt in the wound here. And Dale has come with a check. He's, hey, when you left IBM, we owed you back wages for your unused vacation days. Here's a check for $615.38, which for Joe, for IBM, is practically nothing. Joe looks at him and says, I did over $2 million worth of damage in the data center when I left. Dale's like, sure you did, but hey, with the insurance claim, we made money on that situation too. So thanks so much. Here's your check. Your file, your employee file is officially closed, unless of course you come back with us. We took the opportunity to, we just took the initiative. We got you a seat on a plane. It's a business class seat, pretty nice. That's how we do it these days. Joe says, you know what? I like it here. I'm going to stay. Dale says, well, I tried. I promised your old man I'd give it a shot. I'd say he'll be disappointed, but he's pretty disappointed already. Dale walked into Joe's home, said, I've been sent by your dad, who's disappointed in you. And none of what you're doing is a surprise because you're a disappointment. Like Joe's dad is so disappointed in him, he couldn't even be bothered to make this trip himself. He sent Dale to do it. Joe gulps. We just see this huge gulp. He is, talk about core wounds. We're seeing it. We're seeing all of this in action. And then Dale just sort of closes with, oh yeah, you like this place? Well, we'll see what happens when these people find out who you really are. Now, have we heard the whole story yet about Joe? I don't know, but he left IBM. He destroyed over $2 million worth of stuff in their data center. He disappeared for a year. He turns up at Cardiff with a new mission to create something else, right? So this is what we know about Joe. Is there more to the story? Maybe we'll find out, but already the picture that's being painted is a drastic one, right? So now we're going to go to the parking lot at the office, and Gordon is sitting in his car. It's after hours. It's an empty parking lot. He turns on the car and, oh, he forgot to turn off Lodi Shuffle. He forgot to turn that song off. So now this music blares, this song of freedom and enthusiasm that he had earlier. He just turns the car back off. Nope, that song is no longer appropriate for this moment. My, how things have changed in a short time. He sees in a mirror Cameron walking by. And Gordon is going to get out because where has she been? And he's like, where's the binder, Cameron? Did you give it to IBM? And she's not really answering him directly, where they're letting us sort of sit with this for a moment. Cameron's like, oh, so hey, are you going to have me just leave after I write the bios? Gordon's like, no. Gordon keeps getting caught in lies here in this episode. It's not a good look for Gordon. But, this is what's on her mind after she had a conversation with whoever made her the offer that they wanted to make her. So they're having this moment of tension, and they're going to be interrupted by Joe. Joe pulls up in his car. He gets out of his car, headlights still on. Portability. I've got an idea. The computer's going to have a handle. Gordon cannot believe this man after everything. Oh, it's going to have a handle? That's the idea that's going to fix all of this? That's what you've come up with? A handle? And Cameron's like, hey, it's still going to be, a copy of a boring box with a handle. Like, what are you talking about? Gordon's like, let's get to the real matter here. She gave the binder to IBM. Cameron's like, I did no such thing. I never said that I did that. And anyway, you're going to fire me after I finish the BIOS. Like, why would I even care about any of this? Gordon says, can you blame us? Says, aha. So you were. So I have no job security here is what you're telling me. Well, just so you know, IBM just offered me a job at triple the salary. This is like, if Joe didn't want to hear one thing right now, it was IBM, right? So Joe says, oh, what a great place to work. I'll write a recommendation. Gordon turns to him and says, yeah, oh yeah, you did. You worked at IBM. And also there, maybe, you ruin everything. You ruin people's lives here. So they start fighting. They get into a full-on scrap in the headlights of Joe's car. They're just fighting. Neither of them really know how to fight, but they're trying to fight. And Joe is trying to cut Gordon to the quick the way Gordon has been doing with him. He's like, before me, you were boozing, not building, and your balls were in a box by your wife's bedside table. Oh, Gordon would probably agree with that assessment. And so, but in the middle of a fight, not what anybody needs to hear. So the fighting continues. Gordon rips Joe's shirt. Women all over the country swooned. Except what has been uncovered is that underneath, the shirt has been hiding a ton of scars, like a lot of scars all over Joe's chest, all over his front. It's really something that makes them all stop and think. It's a very serious moment. And so Joe launches into his story, his little monologue. He's like, I was 9 years old. I was bullied by these kids. They used to chase me because I liked Sputnik. I didn't like sports like I was supposed to. I didn't even see the Colts and Giants play in 58. Greatest game ever played. Why didn't I? Because they had chased me. And then there was an accident. I was hooked up to machines for that game. I was at St. Peter's. Tears are streaming down his face. And it's almost like he's a robot crying. Like there's not even, there's like a bit of pain in his eyes, but it's like, is this man even there? Like it's a really interesting acting choice that Lee Pace made here. He's telling this really emotional story and he's crying, but he's not sobbing crying. He's very much almost together, but with tears streaming down his face. Still lit by the headlights of the car. So he's talking about how he was bullied and these kids chased him off the roof and it put him in the hospital and he missed this big game. He says, but after all that, after IBM, I was looking for answers and I found your article, Gordon, and, it kept me up at night. It made me feel like a kid again. It made me want to find you. And then I saw you at Comdex and I watched as the proverbial kids chased you and your wife out of the room and your beautiful machine. Then he looks at Cameron. He's like, I picked you because you threaten people. You threaten me. You threaten Gore. You threaten everybody. You threaten people, but that's what makes you great. We're all unreasonable. But progress depends on our changing the world to fit us, not the other way around. So it's another pep talk on the back of a vulnerable story. And, Joe says, I'm showing up tomorrow in the office at 7 a.m. Join me if you want, but something tells me that you both need this as much as I do. I think just the fact that they've seen the scars was enough to make them stop and listen. He's done what he can, right? Joe has done everything he can to convince these two to stick with him. We cut to the office the next day. Joe is sitting blankly in his office, just sitting down, staring, and he hears the sound of somebody coming in to the main office area. Gordon walks in. Joe starts smiling. I got him. Gordon keeps walking into his office, sees Joe, closes the door behind him. Joe then turns, he looks, Cameron's in her office. She seems to be like pretty comfortable, like she was lying down, like maybe she had been sleeping there. Cameron is going to walk into Joe's office. And she says, yeah, I remember. Greatest game ever played. My dad used to tell me about that. That game was played in December of 58. Sputnik, that was almost a year before. Joe looks at her and he says, is that right? And he almost has a hint of a smile, but they stare at each other. They're looking at each other. We get a lot of Joe and Cameron sort of staring at each other and seeing each other in this episode. I find this exchange so interesting. It's so, it tells me so much about where they are as people and where they are in this office or whatever it is relationship that they've got going here. Cameron's BS meter is pretty sharp, pretty honed in. And she, when she sees Joe, it spikes. She knows she wasn't convinced to come back to the office because Joe's story was so good. She was convinced because his story was such a lie. And I think she's intrigued by that. I think that she sees all the damage. She sees all the roboticness. That's not a word. She just sees all these qualities in him and things that maybe could be a red flag. They were a red flag for me. She is drawn to it. Maybe it feels like a challenge, like I am able to see through his stories, and so I must continue to do so. And Joe, in this moment, it's like she's called him out, but she's not chastising him. She came back to the office. She's agreeing to continue to work with him. And so it's just this moment of, I see you, I see you. And it's like, for the first time, they're not fighting each other. They've almost, in this moment, accepted each other. Where does it go from here? I don't know, but they've had this moment of saying, I see you and I'm here. And it's a really interesting start. So that is the episode breakdown by scene. And I just wanted to put a finer point on some of the music that we heard. There was a bunch of it. We heard the Lido Shuffle by Boz Scaggs. I'm adding some years to this. So this song is from 1976. So we have some songs from the 70s here, even though we're sitting squarely in 83. That happens, right? We still play music now from years ago. But that's the song that was playing on Gordon's drive home. There was a song there were a couple of like more punk songs set to some Cameron scenes. The first one we saw was Pay to Come by Bad Brains. This is a 1982 song. This was when Cameron was taking apart the computer on the floor in her office and Joe entered. And then we have at the Clark home, we've got a song called Plain Sailing by Johnny Pearson. This one is more of a classical song. This is actually from 1984. So they pulled from the next year for this one. Gordon comes home, Donna's cooking. Okay, now we're gonna get another Cameron song. Cameron's working in the basement, and we're gonna get Badly Bruised, Slightly Stoned, a song by Plain Characters. This one was from 1978, so a bunch of 70s songs in this one. And then lastly, when Cameron goes shopping, we're going to hear Blank Generation by Richard Hell and the Voidoids. So those were some of the songs that came up. Now, with favorite quotes, I probably should pick the Joe quote about progress depends on our changing the world to fit us, not the other way around. But Boz just cracked me up in this episode. And the lines that cracked me up were so simple, but so delightful to me. So I'm going to give you, I'm choosing between two. I'll give you an honorable mention. Honorable mention is going to be, Joe comes to us from IBM, sorta. That was a fun introduction of Joe. But my favorite line is Boz after a ferociously bad phone call that he had in the middle of all of the key decision makers on his team. Boz comes back with, Carl's a no. It was such an unnecessary line, and that's what made it so beautiful. So yes, that would be my favorite quote from this episode. Now I have some feedback that I wanted to share from after the first episode. And this one is from Darren Springer, who says, ultimately for me, what makes this show so great just comes down to all the relationships that are intertwined between the characters. The show couldn't have cast this thing any more perfectly. And Lee Pace, what can you say? He totally embodies Joe McMillan in every way. Unfortunately, I still cannot find a movie or show with him in it that I can connect with him in the way that I do with Halt and Catch Fire. He's amazing. The tone and the vibe of the show just really captures that late 70s, early 80s vibe. I was only a kid at that time, but it just feels so familiar. So this comment, thank you so much for that comment, Darren. And it gave me some things to think about. First of all, I think I should probably say that when I first, in season 1, when you first meet Joe in some ways reminds me of a person that I worked with and reported to, in fact, who was Joe-esque in some important ways, but did not have an arc. Joe, as a TV character, is going to have an arc. Person I knew didn't. And I brought a lot of baggage in with me to watching Joe in the first season, and I'm inclined to be very wary of him. And this show is going to take me on a ride, and this show is going to ask me to rethink that in a lot of ways. And I think it's to the credit of the writing. I think it's very much to the credit of Lee Pace that I'm going to be able to go on that ride. So if any of you feel like, oh, you're a little harsh on Joe at times, that's the way I was wired to start with this. But I will absolutely continue to reevaluate my thoughts, and I encourage anyone at any time to challenge my thinking on this. If you deeply love Joe, if you have empathy for Joe from the very beginning, share your thoughts. I'd love to hear them. The other thing I love too, Darren, thank you for highlighting, like, maybe Joe is your favorite character, I'm thinking. And it made me wonder who is everybody's favorite character. I would absolutely love to hear this. Feel free to comment and share your thoughts. If you do have a comment that you want to share, just start, if you have a spoiler in it, just start with spoiler in all caps. Do a couple of line breaks, and that way we know to be careful if there are people who have never seen the show before who are reading. I would love to know what characters people love, who you connect with, and just get your thoughts on that to prime us all as we watch this series again. I've been doing a little bit of sort of poking around Twitter and getting some, it's funny because you can, if you type in the right search terms, you just see people sort of shouting into the ether, I love Halt and Catch Fire, and then nobody responding to them. But there was somebody whose tweet I saw the other day that said, like, I love John Bosworth. He's my favorite character in all of television. And I just thought, that's, wow, that's amazing. Tell me why. I want to know why. Like, what, Boz is great, but tell me why you connect with him. So I'm really curious to know from all of you who you connect with in this show, and if that evolved. Did it evolve? Tell me about that. I will start. Well, actually, Darren started. Way to go, Darren. I'll do the second one. And we haven't met her yet, so I won't give you any spoilers, but I love Diane Gould. When we get to the Diane Gould stuff, I'm going to glow. I like her. So I'll tell you more about that when we get there, but because I'm actually speaking and you're watching this video, I don't want to spoil this for people. So that's one that really strikes me. But yeah, I would love to hear from all of you on your thoughts on it. And that, my friends, is Halt and Catch Fire season 1, episode 2. It's so fun to start covering this, and now that we're really establishing these characters, we get to keep moving forward in the plot a little bit more now. So I'm looking forward to the ride that we're on, and I can't wait to do the next one, which of course is going to be episode 3, and we're going to just figure out what the aftermath of all this looks like. In the meantime, enjoy Halt and Catch Fire, everyone. Bye.